Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hello, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, guys, today we are going to talk about the concept of going with your gut. And I think probably it's like, all right, well, so it's just, you're going to just tell us to go with our guts. Great, thanks. But wait, don't stop listening because we're going to talk about why you should go with your gut and also when. Because yes, there are sometimes things that might masquerade as a gut instinct that are not actually gut instincts.
Girl.
So we're going to talk about how to tell the difference between the two and also when we do identify that it is in fact your gut and not say that terrible little part of your brain that tries to keep you small and on the couch and eating Cheetos. Resistance with a capital R. When you know the difference and how to, well, now I'm just babbling. Kate, let's get into this episode.
Let's talk about it.
My gut is telling me I'm just babbling. Let's get into this
Cheetos,
episode.
and I really just want a bag of Cheetos and to be on the couch, but I'm not. I know. Sometimes you just do. One of the things that when it comes to, I think, thinking about the gut is really the idea of trusting yourself and trusting, in this case of copywriting, trusting your training and trusting that you know what you're talking about and that you have the skills to do what it is that you're providing to your clients. And you do, but obviously doubt can kick up. And one of the things that's fresh in my brain, because we were just on a book club call today with our CCA Plus group. And one of the things Patricia was talking about that I think was so smart and valuable was this idea of when she gets feedback, she takes it, of course, but then before she kind of digests that feedback, because she's identified that that's a point where the inner critic can come up of, oh, I'm going to get feedback from a client. And I know that's a point where I can kind of have self-doubt. And so she goes back before reading that feedback and looks at the creative brief, looks at her copy and says, same thing she does when providing that copy of, here's why I made this choice. Here's how this answers the brief. I did what I was supposed to do because here's what our goal is for this piece. It has a call to action that meets that goal. It's speaking to this audience. And then she can go and look at that feedback and say, okay, is what of this feedback makes sense, and I'm just going to go ahead and incorporate, and what feedback maybe do I need to have a deeper conversation with my client around.
Ooh, Patricia, that is
She's
so good. She is good. I know. I like Patricia a lot.
And so one of the things when she was talking about this, I actually thought of just today, just before we started recording, actually, I got feedback from a client on very minimal edits, some things that I just didn't know about the project and asking clarifying questions. And she changed a word choice to all the new workshops. And so as I was reading, I was like, okay, there's nothing inherently wrong with all the new, but in my brain, I was like, I'm reading all new workshops. Which they are all new. And so just the phrasing, and if you saw it in the context of the full copy doc, it felt clunky to me. And so I kind of sat with it and I was like, yeah, I could just accept this edit and we could keep moving on. But I was like, something about this is sticking for me. And I think if we're going to use this in many places, why not put the, 40 plus new workshops versus all the new workshops? Like, why aren't we enumerating this when we're doing it in other places? And so that's going to be something I am making a choice to, I'm going to go back to the client and say, yep, all these edits made sense. Thank you so much. Here's one that I'd recommend. It could flow a little bit better if we did this and come with a different solution to it. Because I see, I think there's this idea of, I see that we want to get across the idea that these are new. This isn't, last year's workshops. This is not. These are things that this audience needs to know aren't just recycled content. And so I understand that that's what we want to convey, but here's maybe a better way to go about that. And so trusting that, okay, I know that there's a better way to solve this, and I'm not going to take the easy route and just, again, I could just accept the changes and move it on and pass it along to the designer, but that doesn't feel right in this situation. So trusting that, okay, there's a better way to solve what it is that we both want to solve. We want to communicate this thing. And so I'm going to go back and we'll see. It might be, nope, just move forward with it. Fine. But at least I did my due diligence. And I think it speaks to Patricia's process as well to say, okay, how are we answering the brief? Are we doing this? And trusting the training. And the more that we can do that, I think, and build trust within ourselves. It takes a while, though, to build trust in your skills, and that
Mhm.
leads to confidence. And
Mhm.
then your confidence allows you to be in better touch with your gut. So it's all connected.
Well, and this is slightly off topic, but I do just want to note that I think it's so insightful that she knows herself well enough to know that
Yes.
when she gets that initial feedback, that that's a moment of self-doubt.
Mhm.
And it's not an opportunity for her to, I'm just going to power through so that she understands this is just the way that her brain operates and the way
Mhm.
that a lot of people's brains
Yeah.
operate. She knows that it's going to come up, so she has a process for preparing herself for it. So again, that part is not necessarily having to do with trusting your gut, but I just want to make a note of that because I think it's very important for us all to learn from that. If we know that historically there are moments when our self-confidence dips, what systems can you build in, or just little habits can you build in that help make up for that a little bit?
And I think it relates to your gut too, because if the self doubt comes in, then you don't know,
Great
is it
point.
that resistance, discomfort, or is it, what is it? And so I think that
Yeah.
helps with.
That's true. Well, it's because that resistance is so loud, and the resistance will tell you that it will try to get you to believe that it is your gut instinct, right?
Mhm, mhm.
It will, and it may actually say like, look, this is the gut, and this is my instinct. You're supposed to listen to it. But anytime anything that is fearful and that's not, and unfortunately we know that resistance is not just fearful. Sometimes it's like, no, but you know what, you've been working so hard, maybe you just shouldn't work today. Resistance is very tricky, but oftentimes we think, oh, my gut or my instinct, or it's your gut or your instinct is doesn't feel scared. Those
Mhm,
are two very different feelings. And if you're going, "Oh, I'm nervous," not even nervous, but like the fear, that's almost always going to be your resistance. But being able to separate those two, and to your point, Kate, separating dealing with the resistance so it kicks up a lot less, dealing with the self-doubt so it kicks up a lot less, it lets you go, okay, thank you for your input, resistance, self doubt. Thank you. Let me actually focus on the project at hand. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, and I think too, when it comes to feedback, I have seen this come up a lot in previous years when I have managed copywriters, when I have directed copywriters. And then, of course, also as we work with students in the group, a lot of times I will give feedback and say, like, this is getting a little bit long here. You're kind of getting away from what we've established is the main benefit to consumer. Da, da, da. And often what will happen is the copywriter will say, oh, I was kind of thinking that. Like,
Mm,
oh, yeah,
mhm,
okay. I was kind of thinking that. And don't get me wrong, when you are first getting started as a copywriter, there's a lot you're still learning. And it's a good thing if you get the feedback and you think, oh, yeah, I was kind of thinking that. But as you progress in your career, the more that you find yourself saying, oh, I was kind of thinking that, stop yourself before you submit it for feedback and make that change, because that's your gut saying, hey, you know what, this is a little bit long up here, or you know what, we're getting a little bit away from the benefit to consumer. Like I said, when you're first getting started, it's good, it's validating to be like, oh, my gut was kind of thinking that, and now you're telling me that's the feedback. You need that a couple of times, absolutely. But the further you get into it, and this does not take long at all, but the more often you should be hearing that gut when you're thinking, oh, I think this is the feedback I'm going to get. Deal with it before you
mhm.
send it into feedback. Correct it. And I know that sometimes it's like, well, I can't figure out that, especially when you're first learning, or sadly, when you are a junior copywriter, there's the, well, I can't figure it out yet. So I'm just going to turn it in for feedback and lean on the feedback. You don't want to do that. You want to incorporate what you think is the problem to begin with, and then take additional feedback there. That is really important to developing your copywriting gut, your copywriting instinct. And because chances are, if you're going, ooh, I think this might be, ooh, I don't know, I think this might be, again, not the fear, they're like, oh, I'm scared that this is gonna whatever, but there's something in your gut that's going, ooh, I keep tripping over this line. This line might be too long, or ooh, I keep tripping over this. This might be a little bit awkward. If you're getting that inkling, right? That's the gut, is the inkling. The like, ooh, I think maybe this. Deal with it, fix it, because that is and the more that you listen to it, deal with it, and fix it, the more you hone that the more you hone that instinct, and you become a better copywriter to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Hey there, it's Nikki. I wanted to take a very quick minute to make sure that you knew about our free on-demand copywriting training. Now, whether you are brand new to copywriting or you've been doing it for a while, but you just can't seem to hit those income goals, this training is for you. You are going to learn the 3 secrets to landing freelance copywriting work without relying on frustrating job bidding sites like Upwork or Fiverr, or without cold calling strangers. And if you've watched any of the student success stories on this channel, and if you haven't yet, check them out. This is the exact same training that they all started with. And I mean students like Kate K, who is making 6 figures working part-time and retired her husband to help her build her business. Students like Stuart, who replaced his full-time salary, which was a good one, with his freelance income and then some. Stacy, who hit 6 figures in her first 6 months as a freelance copywriter, and Ashley, who landed the in-house copywriting job of her dreams. They all started with this free training, and you can start with this free training too. So sign up right now at freecopywritingtraining.com.
I think often what happens too is you write a line, you're like, oh, this line's really great, but it's not it's not speaking to the right audience, or it's not speaking to the right benefit, or it's just not right. And so what I do, open up a doc, have a little like word, phrase, whatever bank for each of your clients. So here's stuff that maybe it'll fit somewhere else again. Guess what, friends? I never look at that doc because usually I come up with something better for the assignment, but it makes me feel better to just save it of like, oh, so I'm not like, what was that line? And maybe I have to reference again. It's there. It's there, and I can move on and focus on what I need to focus on for that particular project. And I think the other thing in this still comes up for me, where there's sometimes you always, you have a brief, but occasionally once you dig deeper and dig in, you're like, oh, there's a little more nuance that I didn't quite ask my client about. And so in these cases, think of an example of a project I just did where we talked about a couple of different main benefits. I went in with the biggest one of time being a pain point for this audience. They don't have enough time. And so as I was writing a headline, there are 2 angles for that idea of not having enough time. They're busy in their lives. And so the example was, okay, they don't have enough time, but how can we make this either adding more joy to their lives, or on the other hand, slightly more negative connotation, but making this not feel like a to-do for them and giving themselves, not making it feel like a chore in the limited time that they have. So kind of a positive version of like, you're gonna have more joy for doing this thing, or slightly negative connotation of this won't feel like another to do. So 2 different approaches to hitting on this idea that would resonate with the audience, but 2 different ways to go about it. And so I chose the one that I thought was stronger. Typically especially with this client, with this audience, positive, I feel like sometimes rings stronger. And so that's the one I went with, but I did include and just said, talking through it I sent through a Loom video, walking through my copy doc and explained, hey, here's this one alternate choice I'm giving you, and here's the thinking behind it. So you always want to explain why. And then your client can enter that conversation. Maybe they have deeper insight that you don't have about this particular subset maybe of their audience, or this particular project, or this particular whatever it is that you want to come with ideas and come with possible solutions versus just kind of sending it through and kind of crossing your fingers and hoping whatever comes back. You want to set yourself up to, hey, I'm the expert. Here's the choices I made and why I made them. And then if there's some options, that's fine too. But you want to curate those options, and there needs to be a reason for those options, because the last thing you want to do is send through, here's 5 different ideas, and I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to be sending through like duplicate copy docs. So like, well, it could be this, but also too, because we're not doing our jobs as copywriters.
Right.
Part of our job is to make recommendations, is to curate all the possible ideas, words in the world, and narrow it down to this specific set of copy and say, look, this is what I think we should go with. But to your point, there are going to be times where our gut's like, you know what? I can't tell based on my knowledge of this audience which of these 2, and these are both solid. And I love your point too about sending it through as and explaining it, as opposed to just, well, you could do this one or you could do this one. Not that you would have done it with that tone of voice at all, but just sending it like, here are 2 options is just kind of, well, but why are there
That's
2
also putting more work
options?
on their plate to be like,
Yes.
"Figure it out. Here's 2, I don't know," and kind of outsourcing the work. And I think honestly, Loom videos are like my copywriter therapy or a creative review. I'm sending through a Loom video because I've worked with this
Mhm,
client before, and it's a smaller we don't need to do a full-on creative review.
mhm,
But same, it's going in, talking through the choices, and sometimes when I make that Loom video, I pause it and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna make that change right now, and guess what? I don't have
mm,
to talk about these options because talking through it
interesting.
on the loom
Mhm,
just solved it for me." Again, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it is, yep, I have 2 very good reasons for both of these, but sometimes talking it through, it's like, "Oh, no, you just thought that other line was cute and kind of fun, and you wanted to kind of, like, show the client, oh, aren't
mhm,
isn't this impressive? Isn't this fun? Look what I can do." And don't get me wrong, that's fun to show a client, like, "Look what I can do." Of course, but
mhm.
when I can do the work for them to say, "Nope, this is the recommendation I have," and again, that other option goes in my doc, so in case they come back for whatever reason and want something else, it's there. That never happens because when you talk it through and you have a reason, usually it's why you went with it.
Well, and that talking it through is like tapping into your gut as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't tell, but talking it through helps you tap into what's
Mhm.
really going on. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
the going with your gut, I think, comes up a lot when it comes to clients as well.
Yes.
Choosing clients, working with clients, what you are going to chart or what you are going to propose as
Pricing,
a
yes.
cost for your client. Yeah, exactly. I think about this was years ago, probably, I don't know, probably a decade, whatever, but it doesn't matter. But I was talking to a guy, he was kind of the president of the company, but his wife was kind of the figurehead of the company. It wasn't an influencer necessarily, but it was kind of a personal brand kind of thing. And as I was talking to him, going through everything, he sounded just kind of scattered and a little bit unfocused. And to some degree, that's fine because as a marketer, I expect to come into a company and help them kind of narrow down what they want to work on. Because I have been doing this for so long. If I were a new copywriter, I would certainly want it a little bit more narrowed in. But he just sounded very unfocused in terms of like, yeah, well, we also want to do this, and we also, and I was like, okay, all right. So kind of took everything he gave me and kind of effectively said, okay, this is the order in which I would recommend doing
Mhm.
things, which by the way was effectively a free service that I gave him. Don't recommend doing that all the time, but being like, all right, you have chaos in your head. Here's how I would execute this stuff. It didn't say the chaos thing. And then said, all right, for each of these pieces, here's what my portion will cost you. And I got a call back and he was like, "Oh, it's just much more than we wanted to spend, da da da." And
Mhm.
at that point I was like, "All right, if you don't want to pay my price, I don't then obviously again, this is not how I said it to him, but I said effectively, if you don't want to pay my price, then this is not going to work because you already seem like this is going to be extra work anyway." And so I said, "All right, best of luck in finding another copywriter." And I might have referred him to somebody else, I can't remember. And Kate's like, "But that was my client. You referred him to me." No, I wouldn't do that. Um, and actually, someone like that, I probably wouldn't have referred him to anyone that I know. But I think like 2 months later, he came back again and wanted to talk again about projects.
Mm.
And I was like, all right, well, so, okay, I'll take the call. Fine. Let me see how things
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
changed. Because often when they come back, when they say, like, "Ooh, it was too expensive before," when they come back, they're like, "Oh, no. I realize now that you are worth it." Or like, "Oh, the timeline doesn't work." Okay, now the timeline does work. We got on the phone and he was talking about, he was like, "What have you done since then?" And it was little stuff. He was like, "Oh, we've hired a VP of marketing," or something like that. And on one hand, I suppose I could have been like, "Oh, great, you have VP of marketing. So now somebody's going to control this chaos." But also remember, they had not gotten that much stuff done. But also, my immediate thought was, did he tell me how much he paid? I almost feel like he told me what the salary of the VP of marketing
Which
was.
feels a little
I don't know.
weird, but
People share weird things sometimes, and sometimes it's to validate, like,
yeah.
well, we got someone real. We're
Mm.
paying this guy 200,000 a year or whatever it was. And I just remember thinking, like, you hired this guy on who's a VP of marketing, which means he's not going to be hands on with anything. And you're now paying him however much it was a year. but my prices for copywriting were too expensive for you. And at that point, I was like, you are penny wise and pound foolish. This is not a company I want to get involved with. Again, I was like, all right, I took the call. It's fine. I'm kind of interested because I was kind of interested in what this woman was doing and was kind of interested in working with her and her company. But after that, I thought, my gut is saying no. And that company, the woman, I think they're still married, but the woman is now doing something totally different realm. And which is okay, right? Like as business owners, sometimes we end up pivoting but I definitely think that I avoided some just a slog through dealing with a client who didn't it there sometimes things will come up faster with their clients with their gut where you're talking with the client and they're like, oh yeah, this and you go, whoa, that feels like a flag to me. Sometimes that will come up faster, sometimes it will come up through conversations, but trust your gut. You know, if the client is saying something to you and you ask about it and then they're evasive, or if anything feels off, trust your gut. There are millions of clients in the world. You do not need this one individual client who's giving you a weird feeling for some reason. Because I think every single time I've talked to a copywriter, whether it's a colleague or whether it's one of our students, and they've said like, oh, this client ended up being kind of weird. And it's like, oh, and I did kind of get that sense that they were weird, but I just ignored it. Do so with your own peril. That will happen sometimes. We're like, well, but I want to work on this project anyway.
Yeah.
Just note to yourself, like, oh, I had kind of a weird feeling about it.
I love that though, for this, you got on the call with him and you had multiple conversations with him. And I think that's one of the most important things, because I think what we see is with copywriters is sometimes you see like a job listing, for example. Oh, but like, would they be open to a freelancer? They're not open to freelancer, so I'm not going to apply. Or they're asking for this in the job description. I don't know if I quite meet that, or whatever it is. And so I think we make a lot of assumptions. But you got on the call and you made gut checks, which is different based on your actual experience with someone. You had a chance to ask all the questions that you had. And I think that's the difference of, I have some questions based on this that like, oh, okay, there's an opportunity in front of me. What questions do I have to feel good moving forward with this? And again, it might take a couple of calls, but I think in CCA students, you have the group. Sometimes I think one times I saw someone ask, they were like, oh, a client wants me to fill out a W-9 form. Like, what does that mean? Like, that's normal. They should. If you are a freelancer, you need to fill that. That's great. Actually, that's a great green flag that they are above board and they are paying their taxes and they're doing things correctly.
Yes.
Like,
Good.
2 thumbs up. Versus other things that I've seen of like, well, this person wants me to do free work, and then they'll pay me based on the performance of this or that. And it's like, ooh, okay, that's where, go with your gut that feels weird. When in doubt, check if you're not sure what something is or what something means. But I think I've had similar experience just in the sense of recently-ish moving forward with a client. Again, I was unsure at first going in, but it's like, let me get more information. Did the initial kind of round of interview of what they asked for. And they were doing due diligence, vetting their people, which is, again, fine. I think, as you go forward in your copywriting career, you might be like, well, I have a portfolio. That's what it's for. But they want to get to know you specifically, and not your portfolio is great. And that's something you need certainly with a lot of clients, but it's not everything. And so kind of putting ego aside to say, even if I've done this and I want this opportunity
Well,
bad
you want to
enough,
get to know them too,
right,
right?
100%. Yeah, great point. And so I was like, okay. And then we got through it and we had whatever the second round was, and there was an assignment, I believe. And so I was like, okay, yep, do the assignment. And we kept going down, and then they shared what this position would be doing every month. They wanted someone for 10 hours a month. And then the things that they kind of wanted.
Is it 10 hours a month or 10 hours a week?
Sorry, 10 hours a week. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Either way, the list of kind of things that they wanted this person to accomplish within that time frame, I just looked at it and I said, there's no way. This is easily double that amount of time for me. And I like to think I'm pretty experienced, I'm pretty fast. And I sat with it and thought, this is a great opportunity, great organization, it seemed like great people, fun variety of projects. There were a lot of boxes as it was checking, but my gut said, you can't do this in this time frame, and you are setting yourself up and frankly them up for just could I have done it for a month? And I consider that too, of like, just give it 3 months and see if it's a good fit. And I thought, I've done this long enough that my gut is saying they want someone maybe using AI a lot more, or, whatever. Even with AI as a tool, I was like, there's no way I'm setting myself up for failure and to disappoint a client. And I don't want to put myself in the position where I'm rushing, or what would more likely happen, I know me, would be I would take the 20 hours a week and I'd be taking 10 unpaid hours. And I just wasn't willing to do that. So, I said, thanks for the opportunity, and kind of just trusted that there would be other opportunities that I could pursue that would be a better fit.
Yeah. And I think you told them too that you were concerned about the amount of work.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Just to be clear to everybody, because like it's a fair piece. You don't have to be rude about it. You have to say like, I don't think that this can all be done. You can just say, I think I'm concerned about the workload. It might be a little bit of a challenge to get that into 10 hours. And therefore, I think that just doesn't, that's not going to work with my schedule. But thank you for the opportunity.
100%. It was me looking at me and what I'm capable of. They can ask for whatever they want, and maybe they found something that's great. But I knew, I wasn't going to get mad at them for being like, there's no way you can have someone do that. No, it was just a bad fit for me.
Yeah. And you saved yourself, like you said, and it would have been like, I obviously we're talking about, I know this company as well. And it was a cool company, like it's cool people, but you saved yourself either overwork or doing fast work that you wouldn't have been proud of. Like, and nobody wants to be delivering subpar work or continually coming back to the client and being like, I know it's supposed to be 10 hours, but this took me 17 this week. This took me 15. This took me 22. And then on top of the fact that you don't have time in your schedule to be doing more than 10 hours.
Right. And I think that's the other piece too, of knowing my schedule and being like, it's just, a disservice to everyone is what it would have been. So.
Exactly. And this is kind of like when a client is saying like, oh, I need this. Can I get this next week? And your gut is going, I really don't think I can do that. But I know it's always very tempting to say like, okay, yeah, I can make that work. And then you find yourself looking at your schedule and going, I'm going to have to cancel time with family or friends, or I'm going to have to like, if your gut is saying, oh, I don't think I can get that done. Sometimes our gut will be wrong. Sometimes we'll get into a project. This has certainly happened to me, where I dig into a project and I go, oh, actually, this is a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And then, great. Then you can deliver it early to a client. I will almost always say like, oh, things changed in my schedule a little bit, so I'm able to get this to you early. That's perfectly fine. If that's not the case, you don't want to end up in that happens rarely, I would say. And you don't want to end up in a situation where your gut said, don't take this project, you don't have time, and you took it anyway. And you did not, in fact, have time. Yeah. And I think the other one that it comes up with the clients is with pricing. And I know that pricing is tricky, right? Because there is it would be so nice if there was just like one master calculator that you could put it in, and
people
would cover
create them.
everything.
As we've said, they're not good. They're pricing guides, and it gives people a starting point, but it's not even that. Like,
they're such a waste.
They're so bad.
And I think the problem, to really go off topic, but those pricing guides, I think the problem is that with newer copywriters who don't know that you can't just, there isn't a way to just, okay, well, this is my price. Then they end up trying to live and die by this and getting in trouble when they go, well, this project, the pricing guide said that this project should be this amount of money, but I've spent 20 hours on it instead of 10. And now I'm making, or 30 hours and whatever. So now I'm making very little money. They're so
friends. Not all
terrible.
Web pages or home pages are the same. Not all sales pages. Not every email is like, it's just how you can blanket here for this thing. No.
Yeah. Or even like salaries and like, well, this is what a junior guy, this is what a mid-level, this is what a senior, like, no. They're terrible. So yes, I get it. I get that. I wish we had a guide and I wish we had a calculator. But even if you plug your information into a calculator. I think we have something somewhere,
We did
resource
that,
somewhere.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah,
Even
yeah.
that, it's a ballpark.
Yeah.
It's this is where you start as a ballpark. Now go back and figure out, is this going to be extra challenging in some ways? Are you going to need to do more research? Does this seem like the kind of client who needs a little bit more handholding? Will there be more phone calls than you normally plan for on a project? Are there more stakeholders, which means that feedback is probably going to be a lot bigger?
Yep.
All of these kinds of things are things that you need to factor in. But anyway, I think what comes up often is that when we talk to a client and we say, all right, we have that initial discovery call and we say, okay, great. I think I've got a pretty good understanding of the project. I'm going to take a look at my notes, make sure I've got everything I need. And then I'll send you through a quote by, let's see, it's noon. I'll send you through a quote by 3:00 today. Does that sound good? And they say, yeah, that's great. You say, great. Then you'll see an email from me by 3. Perfect. And then what happens, unfortunately, is usually we'll have an idea. We've just been through all this, and we'll have probably an initial something in our head that's like, this should probably be around $1,500. And you go through and you're like, oh, but $1,500 to me feels expensive.
Hmm.
Oh, like you're not your client, you're not your client's head, but we have that initial like, oh, you know what? I think this should probably be. I think it should be 1,500. But maybe you have never spent $1,500 on copy before, or and we put everything through our own, or even maybe you've never had a $1,500 project before, or maybe it's a $10,000 project. You've never quoted a $10,000 project before. You will eventually, but maybe at this point you have not yet, and you're going. I've run all my numbers and I think it should be $10,000, or even just initially going through it. This is at least a $10,000 project. And you go, no, I can't say $10,000 to a client. You're going up against your gut is going, this is a $10,000 project. If you charge anything less than 10, or whatever your numbers are, if you charge anything less than this number here, or what we're thinking this is, you're going to be in trouble. But that resistance mind is going, oh, but that feels like
It's
a
a
lot of
scary
money. It's a
number.
scary number. Okay, all right, I'm thinking it should be 10. Okay, so 10,000. But what if I then, what if I did like 8,000? Or maybe I did like 7,500. Because I feel like for
You
whatever
try to guess,
reason.
like, what's gonna be more
Yes.
palatable to my client, but you're doing guessing that best of luck.
Yeah, you're not psychic. You're not in their mind. You can't know. By the way, they may have already budgeted out 12,000 for this project. You might come back with 10 and they might be like, yes, deal. That's a bargain. You don't know what's in their heads. All you know is what you know about how long it's going to take you to do it. And if your gut is going, oh, this has got to be X amount, whatever that amount is, if you are overriding it to go, almost always we're going to be overriding it to go lower.
Yep.
It's not a good situation. You will pay for it literally and figuratively later.
100%. And that's what we've talked about this. So we'll link to it below. But having a no lower than number is one of your, so if you're uncomfortable sending through that big one, say, okay, if I can't tell you any projects in my 15 years that people have come back questioning the price. I think maybe once, maybe, and they just wanted more context. Your client will probably accept it. But if they come back and don't, for whatever reason, you have your no lower than number and they say, oh, well, here's what we budgeted for. This is what we could do, or what. It's the start of a conversation. But you want to go into that conversation knowing like, okay, ooh, this is uncomfortable. I think I could do it but maybe 10,000 was the number for the project, or what, again, name your number. Whatever you sent through might have been really, truly what it should have been. And that is your no lower than number. Then fine, great, go with it. But go in with that so that going into that conversation, you don't have to, if you don't want to, kind of buckle under that pressure of a client saying they can't hit your number. If you want to move forward with it for other reasons, whether it seems like a really cool project or a portfolio, but there are other reasons why you might pursue it. But send it through, friends. 9 times out of 10,
the price it should
your
be.
Your gut knows.
Send it through.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
and
little like,
if it makes you nervous.
The nervous.
Yeah,
exactly. It's nervous versus the gut. The nervousness is just, this is a really big number. And the gut's like, yeah, but this is what's going to pay our bills adequately.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going to be working for half off. And what?
Yeah. Yeah. The little voice in your head, maybe even your heart, is going, oh, that makes me so uncomfortable. And then your gut is going, yeah, but that's the price. Yeah, but that's the
And this
price.
happened to me
So
not
no
that long
difference.
ago, it was with a client that you mentioned earlier, of a client that just has more stakeholders, that requires more kind of hoops, and this was that client. I kind of forgot going in because it'd been a while since I'd done any work with them, and so then I
Whoopsies.
was like, "Oh, this okay, here's this," and I was like, "Let me add a little extra for this," and even with the extra, I was like, "Oh, that feels like a lot of extra, but okay, I'll send it through," and they approved it. No questions, no problem,
Mhm.
and I got through the project, but we got to the end, and I was like, we need a new scope of work if we're going to continue this work. Cause I was like, I hit the project hours and time frame for what we had agreed on. And I was like, we're going beyond now. Um,
I wonder if somewhere deep in your subconscious you remembered that it was more work, and that's why you were like, "I'm gonna add a little bit extra
exactly. That's what it
on,"
was like. Yeah. And it felt uncomfortable to add that
Yeah.
extra because, you're like, well, this is what I should be able to do the work in and kind of time for it and all of that. And then it's like, yes, but should is in an ideal world where we don't have
Yeah.
to answer to anyone and no one, a copy just gets approved, sure, but that's
Mhm.
not the
Yeah.
world I'm living in.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It can be uncomfortable to go with your gut. It can be uncomfortable to learn to listen to
Let's do
your
it.
gut. Uncomfortable more just in the, well, this is new. This is new to actually take a moment to talk. This voice up here is like, everything is scary. Everything's never. Okay, let that voice talk. Let it wind itself down and then go, okay, but what do I really feel? What is really going on here?
Mhm,
It can take some practice to listen to it, but it is there. It might be very quiet because it's not used to being listened to,
mhm.
and as such, it stays kind of quiet, but you can develop that gut, and the more that you in a good way, you can grow your gut. Yay, more cheese pizza.
I'm gonna
Yes. But the more that you listen to it, the more that you validate it, and the more that, and yes, there are absolutely gonna be some times where you're gonna choose to override your gut. Like you were saying, like, I'm kind of feeling this, but you know what? I wanna risk it because this would be a cool project to work
mhm.
on. Okay, fine. As long as you're making
It's
that
intentional.
decision.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Then fine. And but you also, and if it falls apart later on, you can go, nah, okay,
I
I knew
know.
it. I
Mhm.
knew it. And you know what? If it doesn't fall apart, then you go, "Ooh, well, that was a risk and that one paid off. I know it's not going to pay off every time, but I got lucky on that one." So the gut must be listened to. So if you, copywriter and aspiring copywriter friends, have good examples of times when you have listened to your gut and it has paid, or maybe you didn't listen to your gut and you should have listened to your gut,
Mm.
share it with
Yeah, let
us.
us know.
Leave it in the comments. There are always places to get in touch with us and let us know. Reach out to us on Instagram, post on Instagram, any of those kinds of things. But we love hearing these stories as well. And if you're comfortable with us sharing it with our community, let us know as well. But let us know. Let us know when the gut has paid off for you as well. And so, with that, we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.